October 1347. 12 merchant ships from the Black Sea slowly anchor at the port of Messina, Sicily. The crowd gathered on the docks expects luxury silks and spices. Instead, they find a living nightmare. Most of the sailors on board are already dead. The few survivors can barely breathe, covered in terrifying black sores. Without knowing it, Europe had just opened its doors to the greatest terror in its history. In less than 5 years, this invisible, silent force would sweep entire cities off the map. It wiped out over 20 million people, which was almost half of the European population at the time. A crisis so deep that humanity believed the world was ending. Welcome to Morbid Medicine. Today, we open the darkest chapters of human history to explore the absolute horror of the Black Death. We will look at how medieval society, trapped in a world of superstition, blood, and fear, tried to fight an enemy they could not even see. This is a journey into a time when darkness ruled the world. To truly understand the scale of this disaster, we must travel back in time. The Europe of the 14th century was already vulnerable. Cities were growing rapidly, but they completely lacked any form of sanitation. Streets were narrow, muddy, and filled with waste. Poverty and famine had already weakened the immune systems of millions. People lived in extremely close quarters, often sharing their homes with animals. It was a world completely devoid of basic hygiene, where bathing was rare and medical knowledge was non-existent. This toxic combination created the absolute perfect breeding ground for a global catastrophe. The stage was set for an apocalypse, but the true terror began when the first symptoms appeared on the human body. It started subtly, but within hours it transformed healthy men and women into unrecognizable corpses. No one was safe, from the poorest peasants in the mud to the richest kings in their stone castles. The nightmare had officially begun. The disease manifested with a terrifying speed. It usually began with a sudden violent fever and severe chills. Victims would start shivering uncontrollably in their beds. This was followed by deep, agonizing headaches and complete exhaustion. But these common symptoms were just the prelude to a much deeper horror. Within a day, painful swellings appeared in the groin, armpits, or neck. These swellings were called buboes. They were the size of an egg, sometimes even an apple. They filled with pus and blood, turning a deep bruised purple or pitch black. If you subscribe to Morbid Medicine, you will see how ancient doctors feared these marks. These black swellings gave the pandemic its terrifying name, the Black Death. The pain from the buboes was so intense that victims would scream in agony. The dark spots spread across the entire body, showing that the flesh was literally dying from the inside out while the patient was still alive and conscious. As the infection reached the lungs, the nightmare worsened. Victims began coughing up pools of bright red blood. Every breath became a desperate struggle for survival. The breath of the infected became so foul and toxic that people believed just smelling it could instantly transmit the deadly curse to a healthy person. The speed of the virus was absolutely devastating. A person could wake up perfectly healthy in the morning and be dead in their bed before midnight. There was no time to say goodbye, no time to prepare. The mortality rate was shockingly high. If you showed the black spots, your chance of survival was close to zero. Fear destroyed the very fabric of medieval society. Parents abandoned their sick children in the dark, and husbands fled from their dying wives. Everyone was viewed as a potential carrier of death. If you are fascinated by these dark twists of human history, don't forget to like this video to support our channel, Morbid Medicine. Whole neighborhoods fell completely silent. The only sound in the empty streets was the heavy wheels of the death carts. Men paid huge fortunes to criminals just to carry the bodies of their loved ones away. Mass graves were dug outside city walls, where hundreds of corpses were piled on top of each other like wood. As death ruled the streets, a strange and terrifying figure emerged from the shadows, the plague doctor. They wore a long leather coat covered in wax, thick gloves, and a wide-brimmed hat. But the most shocking part of their outfit was the mask. A terrifying mask shaped like a large, sharp bird's beak. This uniform was designed by Charles Delorme in 1619. The long glass eyes gave the doctor a ghost-like look. The beak was not just for terror. It was packed with strong aromatic herbs like dried flowers, mint, and camphor. If you love discovering these dark historical designs, make sure you are subscribed to Morbid Medicine. Doctors believed the disease was caused by bad air called miasma. They thought that filling the beak with sweet-smelling herbs would protect them from breathing in the deadly plague. They also carried a wooden cane to examine patients without ever touching them and to keep frantic people away in the streets. Unfortunately, these doctors were not scientists. They were often desperate volunteers or second-rate physicians. Their bizarre treatments were completely useless and often accelerated death. They would slice open the black buboes and apply a mixture of human waste, dried frogs and lilies, directly into the open wounds. Another popular and deadly method was bloodletting. Doctors would cut open a patient's veins, letting them bleed out into bowls until they fainted. They believed this would drain the bad humors from the body. Instead, it simply drained the patient's final strength, killing them much faster in terrible pain. Some citizens turned to extreme religious movements. The flagellants walked from town to town, whipping themselves with iron spikes until they bled. They believed the pandemic was God's punishment for human sins. Leave a like on this video if you find it incredible how fear can drive humanity to such dark extremes. Others blamed the alignment of the planets, strange winds, or even poisoned wells. In their complete desperation, people attacked outsiders and minority groups, looking for any scapegoat to explain the invisible apocalypse. The world was drowning in blood, ignorance, and absolute terror. Slowly, the devastating fire of the Black Death began to burn out, not because a cure was found, but because it had simply run out of victims to kill. The virus had taken almost half of the population. Survivors were left in a completely shattered world, surrounded by empty ghost towns and silent, overgrown fields. Yet, this unimaginable tragedy completely changed the course of human history. The massive shortage of workers broke the rigid medieval system. Peasants could finally demand better wages and freedom. It forced humanity to question ancient dogmas, paving the very way for the birth of modern science and medicine. But the true identity of the invisible killer remained a complete mystery for over 500 years. People still feared that the bad air, or a curse, could bring the nightmare back at any second. If you want to keep exploring how science conquered these ancient horrors, subscribe now to Morbid Medicine. It was only in 1894 that a brilliant scientist named Alexander Yersin finally discovered the real culprit. It was not a punishment from the heavens or alignment of stars. It was a tiny, rod-shaped bacterium. In honor of his groundbreaking work, the deadly organism was named Yersinia pestis. The transmission cycle was fascinating and complex. The bacteria lived inside fleas, which lived on the bodies of black rats. These rats filled the dirty, crowded medieval streets and ships. When the rats died from the plague, the hungry fleas jumped onto nearby humans, biting them and injecting the lethal venom. Today, thanks to modern antibiotics and sanitation, the Black Death is no longer a death sentence. It can be icily treated if caught early, but it remains a chilling reminder of how vulnerable we truly are. A tiny microbe, invisible to the eye, managed to bring the entire civilized world to its knees. Thank you for traveling back to this dark age with us. What part of medieval medicine shocked you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and share it with other history lovers. This was Morbid Medicine, and we will see you in our next Dark Archive.